Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street. Mark Bell is joined here by his illustrious brother, Chris Bell. Chris, I didn't know you was coming. What's happening? You doing all right?
I live down here. Mark came over, so I just said, might as well go with you.
And Chris, as we talked last time you was on the show, man, you wrote, directed, and produced Bigger, Faster, Stronger, right?
Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Get it right, pal.
God dang, I'm about to give this guy a Stone Cold Stunner. You just got here. You can take the window, you can take the stairs. So, dude, what are you up to now?
I just made a new movie. It's called Prescription Thugs, so it's about prescription drug abuse. There's a couple wrestlers in it. Luther Reigns is in it, and Ryan Sakota. And they talk about their prescription drug abuse problems.
Well, that was interesting that you bring up those two names because they were just in the headlines as part of a class action lawsuit with another young man who his name escapes me right now, suing the WWE.
McCullough?
Well, I know, but they're suing the WWE saying unsafe, this, that, whatever. It's a bunch of malarkey. This is my family-friendly show. So, it's a bunch of BS is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I don't know exactly about that lawsuit. I don't know exactly what the issue is. I know that Luther Reigns, Matt Weiss, for example, his real name is. I know that he had a major prescription drug issue. I don't know if it was because of wrestling or I don't, and I know that
it's because of personality,
So, yeah, the personality of a pro wrestler is going to be different, right?
I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, and I have no heat or animosity with any of the three guys in the lawsuit. I was just, just because you said those names, it brought that to memory. But, at the end of the day, I've heard so many people say, God dang it, Steve, when is Vince going to do something about this?
Right.
Hey, man, it ain't Vince McMahon.
Well, I think they have done something about it.
They have. But my point is, man, each man or woman is responsible for what they do and what they put into their body. You have to hold yourself accountable to the things you do in this life. And so all the people says, when's Vince going to do something about it? You got to do something about it yourself.
Same thing's true with steroids and stuff like that, too. If you get in a bodybuilding community and you see how big and jacked the other guys are, you get in a powerlifting community, it's your decision on whether you're going to take stuff or not take stuff.
I just want to let everybody know that I did ask Triple H for an interview in this movie. I wanted to talk about the the whole wellness program that they have. And Triple H actually agreed to do an interview, and we just didn't have time to do it. So I just want to let everybody know that the WWE was willing to talk about it and was willing to get on record about it. We just didn't have time to do it in this movie. And this movie really isn't about the WWE. This is about a drug problem that is an epidemic in America.
So talk about it. The Luther. I know we don't give the movie away here on the podcast, but what was his issue? Vicodin, Percocet type things?
Yeah, Luther. His issue was he was taking 90 pills a day. So he was taking up to 90 different pills a day. So it was Vicodin, OxyContin, Percocet. All these different pills. He said that he would take Viagra and Cialis every day, just to get up in the morning as part of his gimmick. I mean, he was just addicted to pills overall.
Stop. You take a Viagra and Cialis. That's a double combo to get out of bed.
He said that he would.
I know we're talking about for sex. You're talking about to get out of bed.
No, he would take that every morning with his pills. He said so. He was just addicted to pills in general.
Because I had a hard time getting out of bed this morning. My 2 cups of coffee and my alpha brain, was kind of. I just like I told you guys, I give you the knuckle bump. I wasn't feeling 100% today, but man, when you're talking about a Viagra and a Cialis, and here's the thing about those two particular drugs, dude, they work different for the same effect,
right?
And you damn sure don't want to take them in combination together. If I needed a Viagra and a Cialis just to get out of bed, I'd be in dire strait, mister.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what he told me. I mean, he told me in the movie he was taking up to 90 different pills a day.
How did he function? What was he doing as a means of work, and how did he stay coherent? Because I've known a lot of cats that were high-functioning alcoholics who could work all day without really slurring, but they were hooked on the bottle real bad. How did the guy function? What was he doing?
I don't really know exactly what he was doing. I know he was part of that. He was wrestling. I know part of when he was doing that many pills, part of it he was functioning in professional wrestling. Right. I don't know what he did outside of wrestling, to function.
It's funny, I sit here because I wanted to talk to you, Mark, about powerlifting, weightlifting in general, bodybuilding, and that community. There's, the the drugs of choice. Let's
Yeah,
call
right.
them, and be very frank about it. But going back to the atmosphere of the surroundings you're in, therein lies different drug choices or
Right.
options that kind of permeate those particular industries. And so for me, back in the day, hey man, a couple of 2 Vicodins, maybe with some coffee to get up. And that was just kind of my standard MO. And maybe, 1 or 2 throughout the day. Or to go to sleep, maybe a couple of Somas or, some Ambien or some Lunesta or whatever the combination, or some Xanax. But dude, I was one of those guys. I was a drinker. That was my thing. I like to drink, like whiskey and vodka. Now we could do a whole what thing here, but we're not.
Right.
But it's just when I hear some of the dosages of guys like the things that you just threw out about him, and like a guy like Dale Wilkes who was taking 40 or 50 gimmicks a day as well, dude, I just can't. I can't understand. First, how they function as a human being.
Yeah, how do you
how do
you do anything?
Well, part of me making this movie was I was a prescription drug addict. I mean, I had double hip replacement surgery, and after I had that,
dude, how old are you?
I was 33 years old when I had
Double hip already?
Yeah,
What
that
happened?
was just a
Kind of a
genetic,
genetic deal.
genetic deal. I mean, my brother squatted over 1,000 pounds, and he never had hip surgery, so I think it was just something that was genetic. But for me, I got addicted to the pills, and I was doing at least 20 to 30
What'd they have
pills
you
a
on?
day. But I mean, I was doing Percocets mainly, and
He basically almost died during the filming of this movie as well.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away this film, but in the making of this movie, I mean, I basically almost died making this movie. So
Eating pills?
yeah, pills and drinking along with it. I think a lot of
What
I
was
think
your
you just
alcohol of choice?
alcohol,
Yeah.
vodka, mainly vodka. But I mean, I would do. I was taking Xanax just basically to get over the hangovers. So I mean, I would
Xanax to get over the hangover, but that's a relaxer or a downer, if I will. And
Yeah, I mean,
that's what you took to get over the hangover?
For me, I would get these nasty hangovers, and I would take Xanax, and I would just get rid of the
Gotcha.
rid of the hangover, make me feel all right, throughout the day. But I think that a lot of people struggle with this. I mean, as I was making this movie, the more people I talked to, the more people I realized had a problem with prescription drugs, alcohol, just addiction in general. I mean, we're a country that's addicted.
The same thing happened with steroids. It was like, people were wanting to open up about it when he shot Bigger, Stronger, Faster. People were like, "Oh yeah, I took some D-ball back in the day." People were just throwing it out.
Yeah, but it's interesting because, like, a lot of people are just really oblivious to the fact of what is really more popular than you would think that it is.
Yeah, right.
And, here as of late, I mean, well, for the last, 5-10 years, it really has been more of the prescription drugs. So, and then, man, dude.
Well, everyone's on something, right? Everybody's got to take something to go to sleep. You got to take something to wake you up. You got to take something because your elbow hurts or this hurts or that hurts. It seems like everybody needs a pill to solve their problem, before they even go down the road of seeing if they're resting okay, sleeping okay,
I
eating
can't
okay,
sleep worth
and so
a
on.
damn. I have to take something to go to sleep. I've got
It's the main issue. You wake up a bunch.
my whole deal with sleep apnea, not being able to sleep,
Right.
is well documented here on my podcast. People have always talked about my wife. Now, when you say everybody's got to have, a pill for something,
Right.
She's one of those people that is anti-pill. She'll ask me, Steve, do you think it's okay to take an Aleve on an empty stomach? And I'm like,
You laugh at it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, honey, I believe you're gonna be okay. She
Yeah, I've
says,
done more dangerous things. You'll
Are
be
you
all right.
sure? I'm like, believe me,
It's not really too big a roll of the dice.
I didn't really go to school to deliver prescriptions or be a pharmacist, but yes, I think you're going to be just fine. But man, I mean, dude, people just they're looking for something to take just to man. I mean, when you look at what's happened to sports, whether it's baseball, track and field, football, everybody's looking for an edge,
Right.
And even an edge in just in jobs.
Yeah, people are always looking for an advantage in some way, and with what I do with powerlifting, sometimes it's a training technique. It's not always a drug. That's what we always look at first at my gym. Is we always look at training technique. We look at form. We look at what's the guy doing? What's the guy eating? We try to investigate all those things before there's ever a conversation about drugs. A lot of guys will come to me and they're like, "Man, I'm not getting the gains I want. I'm not reaching the goals I want." And I know what they're trying to say.
Right.
I
that's
think Mark
code.
said it the best in Bigger, Stronger, Faster. He talks about, people wanting to do drugs, but he says you should get as strong as you can naturally. And for me, that was always the thing. I was always a power lifter when I was younger, and, it was always about getting as strong as you could.
Push the envelope. See what you can do. See what you
naturally.
can handle.
And, I never took steroids until I got to as strong as I did naturally. And people always ask me, like, did you do them after Bigger, Stronger, Faster? Of course I did after Bigger, Stronger, Faster, because I realized it wasn't going to kill me. I realized it wasn't such a bad thing. I realized that, hey, maybe this is something that can help me. So
that movie saved his life, too.
I tried them after Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and, what I found was it's not something that I do regular. It's not something that's necessarily like something I do all the time, because it wasn't necessarily for me. My goal wasn't to be the strongest guy in the world like Mark's was,
right.
But I do realize that they weren't going to kill me,
Right, but and certainly I'm not going to sit here on the Steve Austin show. I know I've got some really young listeners that listen to the show. I'm not advocating the use of anything. As a matter of fact, I would go against that grain and say, do your due diligence, do all your research. If you're going to use anything, make sure you're of an age, a mature age. Of some, you hear about these high school kids. I talk
people out of it all the time.
The competitive part of high school athletics, and these young cats jumping on the gas at way too early of an age. So, man, and we talked about that a little bit last time you were here on the show.
Right.
But anyway, enough about all that stuff. Going back to you, Chris, what's this called?
Prescription Thugs.
Prescription Thugs. And when's it going to come out? Where's it going to come out?
It's going to premiere at Tribeca Film Festival. So it premieres on April 18th is the premiere date. So just like in another week or so, it'll premiere, and then hopefully we'll get it on Netflix or Showtime or something like that.
Now, dude, how long did it take you to do the groundwork, do your research, and come up with all the content, and much less film everything?
To do one of these documentaries, I'd say, when I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster, it took almost 3 years to do. I did my second movie, Trophy Kids, which was on HBO, and that took about another 2 years to do. And this one, I get a little faster each time, but this one took about another 2 years to do as well. I mean, Bigger, Stronger, Faster was my first outing, so it took a little bit longer. But, to do a documentary and to do it justice and to do the research and, to get everything right, I'd say it takes about 2 years.
Has it always been your quest for knowledge? I mean, obviously, this is something that you're very passionate about. And me, man, I ain't got enough attention span to try to accomplish this task. It gets easier for you now as you've done it so many times. You truly enjoy what you do?
I love it. I love making documentaries. I love doing things that I love providing people with information. And what happens usually is if I'm going to tell you a story, I'm going to tell you about something, I can do that, in a matter of a couple minutes or whatever, tell you sometime. But to really tell you the full story and to really get all the information out there, it takes a couple years of research to do that. One of the reasons, actually, I disagree with you a little bit. You said you don't have the attention span. I was just talking to Mark about, I said, you're probably one of the most researched people that does a podcast. You do a podcast and you have all the facts and you have it all down. And so I want to applaud you on that. I think you do a great job of researching everything you do on the podcast.
That being said, I'm not really, it's not rocket science over here at 316 Gimmick Street, but I'd like to know a little bit about, it was surprising because, when Mark said he was coming in L.A. on a business deal, and I said, hey, man, come on over, let's do a podcast. So I just thought we'd shoot the breeze, talk about getting strong, and, with respect, not to drugs, but with rep schemes and pyramids back from the old days when I was in college, and I'll give you kind of the overview of our training protocol back then and see what you would recommend now. But before we do that, man, I know you two guys are avid wrestling fans. Your brother was a professional wrestler for a little while. Did y'all get a chance to see WrestleMania 31?
To see what?
WrestleMania 31.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I loved it.
So what did you think about the show?
I thought it was great. I mean, I actually watched I've watched every WrestleMania that's ever come along, and actually you were one of my favorites of all time. I used to pop up out of my chair like a little kid, and I was
it's amazing
30 years old.
It's amazing how crazy it is now. The spectacle that it is, what it's turned into is unbelievable.
How were you guys? I enjoyed the show. I gave it a big thumbs up or middle fingers up as the Stone Cold part of it would do. But it was different for me. It was a little discombobulating for me to watch wrestling, and it's not sports entertainment at my house, to watch pro wrestling in the daytime because it just threw me off visually. And I know they were working. They did the stadium over in Orlando, Tampa, wherever it was, Miami, where The Rock is from. Where was that at? Miami.
Yeah, Hurricanes.
Okay, so, that's on the East Coast. So they had pretty much the luxury of working in the dark. And really didn't get dark until damn near the main event. How was that for y'all? Did it mess with you a little bit?
I was watching it, I was on Twitter the whole time, and I saw people mad about, hey, I can't watch it, during the day. I can't watch wrestling.
That's not the first WrestleMania.
But it
actually
threw me back to, I used to watch, I think you used to, back in the day, we used to watch World Class Championship Wrestling, And that was always during the daytime with Kerry Von Erich and, you know, the Von Erichs and all those guys back then. And I just love that.
They were out in like a big field or something.
It didn't bother me. I thought it was cool. I was.
But man, where was that? Was it the Cotton Bowl when they did that?
That was down in Texas somewhere.
But here's the deal, and what I'm thinking is it was down in Texas, and this is way back in the day. This was in mid '80s. So it was probably during the day because Fritz would have to turn on the lights and save money. And that's just a guess, but that's why that probably happened like that. So, favorite match of the night?
I don't know. I think the seeing like Ronda Rousey getting there was kind of cool for me, just because I'm an MMA fan, so I just thought that part was cool. You know, just because it's different. You know, it's different than the matches. You know what I mean?
I think everybody had to say it was Triple H and Sting was probably the highlight of the night with the NWO coming out and having
the thing about that match that really surprised me was the very, very simple psychology which went into it. There was a tackle, there was a tackle drop down in the hip toss, there was a drop kick. All of a sudden, the fans start chanting, "You still got it." So it
was pretty cool.
But it was very cool. You could still go out there with the simple formula.
Yeah.
And like I kind of said on a few earlier podcasts when I was talking with Wade Keller, we were breaking this thing down. I just thought one thing that held me to that match was, first of all, I was very excited to see Sting in a WWE ring. But just the serious nature with which Triple H commanded that match of how important that was. Now, when we go to the finish, were you guys cool with Sting looking up at the lights and Triple H getting the 1, 2, 3, or did you want to go the other way?
I thought it was good the way it went down. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I got to ask you a question. How does it feel for you to watch WrestleMania after being such a big part of WrestleMania and being the main event? How does it feel for you to watch it?
Oh, man, because, of course, I still love the business. And, I'm still, kind of tied with WWE. We didn't have a podcast thing going on, but nonetheless, man, I enjoy watching all the shows. And I don't watch all of the pay-per-views, but, of course, I'm always going to watch the WrestleMania. I'm always going to watch the Royal Rumble because I want to see the setup and how they're moving all the players around on the chessboard to see how they pay it off. So, man, it's
Can you sit there and actually watch it, or do you get all fired up?
No. I'm critical because
I can't believe they did that.
I love the business. I think I question everything. My last match was in somewhere about 2003. So you get out of the business, but you've still been watching it. So it's like my brain and my mind has evolved, with the business, and I see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and again move the chess pieces around on the board. So I'm very critical. And if I go back and watch some of my old stuff, I'm like, dude, that wasn't worth a damn. Or, what if you'd have done this here instead of that? So I'll nitpick everything. But it's just real fun to watch the guys go out there and do their thing because, man, I will always be a wrestling fan because, I've been a fan since I was 7 or 8 and will be till I die.
That's how we were. I mean, when I was talking about watching the Von Erichs, Mark used to actually have to hold the he used to have to hold a antenna, hold the antenna to make it
make
come
the
in.
TV work,
so
the rabbit ears.
Brother.
Yeah.
He was like 4 years younger than me and Mad Dog were, so he always just had to hold the antenna.
I got stuck with the shitty job.
So what did you think about the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns match? I thought that was the match of the night.
I thought it was great. I thought it was so funny, the way that it ended and the Money in the Bank thing. And I was kind of expecting that, but I wasn't sure if they were going to go through with it, But I think Brock Lesnar's great. I mean, I love watching.
He's an insane athlete. He tried out for an NFL team.
To see somebody he actually made an NFL team for a minute,
Vikings,
and then to watch him fight in the UFC, and to know that even when
he won the championship,
he was the UFC champion, and even when he was hurt in the UFC, I mean, when he lost,
he wasn't 100%.
He wasn't 100%. He was hurt when he lost. So to see somebody that's that athletic and that just
that big and jacked,
and strong and. I remember watching him versus Kurt Angle and all those matches. I mean, I think he's just a great athlete. He's interesting to watch for sure.
I thought he carried that match. I thought Roman Reigns did what he needed to be. And I won't go too much on about it because I talked about it in past podcasts. But you take care of Brock. I mean, that finish when he had Reigns up or Rollins up. About to give him the F5, and then here comes Roman Reigns with the spear. Brock rolls out, and all of a sudden, curb stomp on Roman Reigns, and all of a sudden, Seth Rollins is the world champion. So you take care of your champion. You didn't beat your unbeatable monster. Brock is whole. And, Roman Reigns is whole too because, people were really starting to kind of go back and forth on, do we like this guy, do we not like him, because they kind of assumed that he'd been pushed too fast too soon. Right. So by beating him, you kind of save him. And with Rollins being, the chicken scratch heel, he gets the win after he did the favors earlier in the night for Orton. So anybody on the card can beat him, but he's your world champion. So it really makes for some exciting matches with him. And
I like seeing him get the belt, too.
I like Rollins, too. Rollins is in great shape. Yeah. He looks great, and he does a great job out there, I think.
Okay, let's talk about that. He comes from a CrossFit background.
Yeah.
Before we get to the CrossFit background, before we get to the CrossFit conversation versus bodybuilding, powerlifting, everything else, you guys are big friends with John Cena, correct?
Absolutely.
And I love the guy as well. He's a good friend of mine.
Some beef with him here.
Okay, this is John Cena. We're on YouTube here, and this is a springboard stunner.
Oh, gimmick infringement.
Beautiful move, covers. Well, Stardust went to the ropes. Okay, guys.
What does he call that move?
Well, I don't think he calls it anything. It was brought up to my attention on several emails that I got, but I never discussed it. So now that I'm sitting here with a couple of guys who are big wrestling fans.
I think you need to have him on the show directly. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to
Well, they just
settle
talked to
this.
him on another podcast. I don't think nobody asked that question. So, gimmick infringement or not?
Oh, yeah, all the way. All the way.
It looks like a little bit of gimmick infringement.
A little bit?
I think you'd
You're blind in one eye?
I think you'd have to talk to him about that.
Here's the thing. People ask me, Steve, hey, man, what do you think about that? First of all, it's obviously reminiscent of the Stone Cold Stunner, but here's my biggest beef with it. It's such a dynamic move, and it requires such precision and timing because his foot could slip on that rope.
Right.
Guys are wearing baby oil. They're sweating. Anything could happen. So that move is very precise. But when you hit that move, I mean, why don't you establish it and get a couple of 3 counts out of it?
Right.
So then when Rusev kicks out or whoever kicks out, if they do, it means something. So he could have had another ace up his sleeve had he actually beaten people with it. Now, the way the finish went down, Lana comes up. Cena goes to Lana. Here comes Rusev charging. Cena moves out of the way, knocks Lana on the floor, on the ground, and then feeds right into an AA. 1, 2, 3. Hey, man, what if they don't, manipulated out of the AA like he did literally 4 minutes earlier, go into a bing, bang, boom, then hit that thing out of the blue and blow the roof off the stadium, which didn't have a roof to begin with. My point is, had they looked further down the road than the short term, he would have had a real valid, great, badass finish than just a setup, which now means nothing.
It would have got a lot more.
Chris, you looking at me like, man, this dude's crazy. Do you understand that?
No, I totally get it.
He's saying prescription thugs.
No, I totally get it. I totally get what you mean. It's like they blew it.
Yeah.
And
well, not they,
funny?
but I mean, just look at being very critical because I don't want to say they blew it.
Because you mentioned that move. And I didn't even remember that move because
that's why I let
me.
Yeah, that's why I let it go. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was in WrestleMania. I don't even remember that move because it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Now, if that had been a finisher, that'd been a pretty cool finish.
Exactly.
It's really important to establish those, those moves and to establish those characters and stuff. Much like, in his movie, Prescription Thugs, you gotta tie people in to the emotions of everything, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're telling a story through a wrestling match.
Hey, man, before we start talking about the gym and getting stronger, Chris, the double hip surgery replacement, and then you got off in a bad way on the pain pills, dude. What'd you do to quit?
What I did to quit really was it's kind of hard to say. Basically, I quit cold turkey, which is like one of the worst things to do. So I tried to quit cold turkey, and when I did, I basically ended up in the emergency room twice. And I ended up.
Your body shut down, didn't it?
Yeah, basically your whole body, like basically your respiratory system shuts down, and you can't breathe and things like that. But I ended up in the hospital twice during that, and then I went to a doctor and they put me on what's called Suboxone. Now Suboxone, basically, after learning what I know now, Suboxone you're only supposed to be on for like 2 weeks. I was on Suboxone for 8 months, and getting off Suboxone basically almost killed me again. So anybody out there that their doctor puts them on Suboxone, they need to know that's a short-term solution to get rid of the withdrawals, not a long-term solution.
Is how do you pronounce it? Suboxone.
Suboxone.
Is that the equivalent of the methadone clinics that they have?
It's basically like
Venice and Marina Del Rey.
Very similar to methadone.
But basically, it is still a drug.
Yeah.
It's a drug that helps you to get off of another drug.
Right, but it is a drug.
Exactly.
To keep everything from hitting the fan.
And what a lot of people don't know is that it is a drug and that they should only be on it for a short period of time, not a long period of time.
Okay, dude, I mean, you kind of have the mentality of a pro wrestler, a muscle head, a meathead, and I always say guys are dumb. Okay, your first time you end up in a hospital, an emergency room with this, and then you end up a second time. What did you not learn from the first time?
I think these drugs are so powerful, and these drugs are so manipulative on your mind. Like you basically like you're using it, and a lot of times there's no consequence. Like basically one time I went to the emergency room, and I came out of it with no consequence. Like basically like I when I came out of the emergency room, there was no backlash. There was no bad feeling. So like when you don't have any consequence to it, you'll basically go back and do the same thing again, not knowing.
Did you need someone to hold you to those consequences? Was that it? Because there was no one to say, hey, Chris, you got to wake up. This is bad.
The way that I got off all the pills is basically letting people know. And they say that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know he had like this bad of a situation. I heard him talk about it a little bit before.
So were you completely oblivious? I mean,
not 100%. I knew like my oldest brother who passed away from all this stuff. I knew that like he wasn't always telling the truth, but then I would ask his friends. I would check up on him. Right. I'd ask different people. I'd text different people and stuff, and they'd say, oh, he's doing okay. Or they'd say, oh, man, he's kind of fallen into a slump. And the next time I asked him about him again, he was back to doing okay again. So I was like, well, I'm not. He's an adult. I'm not going to ride him about it. And it's just too emotional to even go there, to even talk to him about it, because we had, one brother pass away from it. So it's like a touchy subject, but we should have talked about it. Leap.
And the thing is, like, once I told my girlfriend about it, she called Mark, and once Mark said basically, hey, you're coming to Sacramento, we're going to fix this.
I said, this is over. We're going to tackle this one as a family, and that's what we did.
Once I sat down with my family, and my parents said, hey, we had one son die from this. You're not going to die from this. This isn't going to happen. I mean,
it was like a big football meeting with like a bunch of strategy. We were throwing out a bunch of strategies, trying to figure out what would stick and what would work.
And no one really knew. Like they didn't really know how to help me get better. So it was all sort of experimentation, with the family of just figuring it out.
Man, way back in the day, man, I used smokeless tobacco for probably 25 years, starting off as a kid, with chewing tobacco. And then after years in the business, kind of started eroding my gums a little bit. I figured the smart thing to do would be able to switch to snuff, and use the front of my mouth. Boy, that's a real smart option, right? So anyway, my dad had an issue about 10, 11 years ago and got mouth cancer, and he'd smoked during, his youth and chewed cigars. And that was kind of my come to Jesus meeting. And I just quit cold turkey. Now, obviously, the thing that you're dealing with was much more serious. I remember I was training at Gold's Gym down there in Venice, and I went in there for a workout. And when you stop using smokeless tobacco, time is like at a standstill. A second takes a minute. Okay. And I would walk in the gym, and I'd warm up on the bench, do 2 sets, like $135 to get warmed up, and I'd just say, piss on it, I'm going home.
Right.
I was grouchy and I was irritable, but then, 4 days later, I was off the chewing tobacco. And then it was going to the ranch and taking that first lap in my Ford Bronco, and I associated different things with the tobacco. So getting in my Bronco and taking a lap, that's when you're supposed to put a dip in, or when you wake up, put that dip in before you get your first cup of coffee.
You're so attached to it. Yeah.
Now, I've been off tobacco now for 7, 8 years. So now you're still pretty fresh. Are there cravings? Are there sometimes you on the edge? How do you cope?
For a lot of people, I went to rehab, and I went to rehab at Cliffside, Malibu. And when I got there, a friend of mine who actually runs the place, named Richard Tate, he basically grabbed me and said, a lot of people will tell you this is a disease, but I'm going to tell you it's not a disease. This isn't airborne. This isn't something you catch. Basically, you're going to beat this. You're going to beat this. And after he told me that, that night I went into the shower. I was in rehab. I went into the shower and I cried for about 3 hours straight. After crying for 3 hours straight, and this is like not a manly thing to say, but I can tell you and tell him because you guys, you get this kind of stuff.
Good thing not a lot of people are listening.
Yeah, nobody's listening. So I literally went in the shower and I cried for 3 hours straight. I got out of the shower and I said, I'm done. I don't want. anything to do with this. I don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs. I don't want any of this. And the rest of the time I was in rehab for 90 days, which they recommend. The next 87 days out of rehab was cruise control for me. Right. And ever since that day, and ever since what they call that in rehab is a spiritual awakening, and ever since I had that moment, I thought of my brother, Mark, who I love. I thought of my sister-in-law, Andy, who was helping us in this. I thought of my girlfriend. I thought of my mom. I thought of all these people, and I'm like, I can't hurt these people. I can't let these people down. I got to stop this now, and this is done. And so for me, I was lucky. I had that spiritual awakening. I had that happen to me. I never really had any curves.
It was a huge change, watching him go through it, because at first it was gradual, him getting into the drugs and stuff like that, at least from my vantage point. Right. And it seemed slow. And then I'd hang around him and I'd be like, he said a couple things that were weird. They were a little bit like what Mad Dog would say type thing, like kind of almost desperate things that you hear from your friends sometimes when they're bitching, right? And you're like, man, that's a little off, But like more and more of that kind of stuff would happen. When I get around him, he'd be like pretty negative and stuff. And I'm like, man, what is? I just kind of couldn't. I never was. I couldn't really put. Yeah, I couldn't put my. No, he's the most positive guy I've ever met. I couldn't really put my finger on it.
Why did the drugs put a negative spin on you?
They just make you think bad thoughts. I mean, like when you're under the influence of prescription drugs and alcohol, you just think bad things. You don't think about the positive, great things that can happen in your life, or the positive, great things that can come about.
You look more at the negative.
You always look at the negative, and I don't know why that is. They say like alcohol and drugs are depressants, and I believe that that's true after going through it.
Hey, man, well, congratulations, man. I just can't believe it. It's just so interesting to see so many of my buddies, starting mixing cocktails and drugs and end up, leaving this earth way too soon.
Yeah, we had tons of people die from it. I mean, I worked for WWE. I think you were. I barely knew you when you were there, but I was a writer there, and I watched guys die. I watched Eddie Guerrero die. I watched Test died. Who knows what exactly it was from? But I know like Test example was prescription drugs, and I just watched all these guys that I got to know and love pass away from this stuff, and I went right down that same route, right down that same road.
Man, I tell you what, man, we're talking with Mark Bell of Super Training Gym over in Sacramento, the strongest gym in the West, on his brother, Chris Bell, a guy who wrote and directed Bigger, Stronger, Faster. He's got Prescription Thugs. It's coming out just in a couple of days, literally, over at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. Coming right back, and we're going to shift gears, lighten it up a little bit, although it's been a great conversation. Let's talk about getting strong and tricks and trades and BS tips in the gym.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's simple. Go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, here we go. Mark and Chris Bell sitting over here at the table at 316 Gimmick Street. It's 3:45. Second hand on his clock is spinning around like a rotisserie chicken.
Hey, can we walk out to that ranch out there and shoot some stuff?
Y'all hunt?
No.
And it's not just shooting stuff; it's hunting. People over here,
Yeah, it sounds so violent when you put it that way.
Yeah, man, I hunt. You know what? And speaking of animals, I just gave up rotisserie chickens. So there is less of a demand. There's only a limited supply or an unlimited supply of the chicken. And I just gave up rotisserie chickens because they give me such bad gas.
Really?
Holy smokes, man.
Must be something in
them. It's a rotisserie chicken fart. And it damn near almost got me divorced. And then the other day, I coupled the rotisserie chicken with some jalapenos. And mister, that will damn near peel the paint off an automobile. that never ever do that again. You hear about the people in Syria using the sarin gas and all that.
You might have been the guy who turned that plane around.
If I could afford,
actually, we had to stop at my house so that he didn't have to go here.
Yes,
so,
I
saved you.
I appreciate that very much. But no, anytime you guys get down to the South Texas area in the 361 area code, here's the thing: people always ask me, "What's the deal with the 361? Isn't it 316?" No, Austin 316 is a wrestling thing. The 361 is the South Texas area code.
Oh, there you go.
So down there in South Texas, my ranch house phone starts with the 361. So if you guys are down in my neck of the woods, and I got dumbbells to 100. I don't have enough plates for you. I think I only have plates to about 500 pounds. I don't think, maybe you could even bench. I got an Elite FTS power rack, so I'm good to go there. They painted it OD green for me, so it looks badass. So I'm well equipped. But back in the day, when I played junior college football at Wharton County Junior College, the Pioneers. How would you like to play for a football team? It's called the Pioneers. We were the first at losing our asses every single season we played.
Didn't you coach the Pioneers?
Yeah, I coached. I didn't
give the Pioneers. I don't know. That just doesn't sound too tough.
No, it's not tough.
Not too fierce.
No.
But anyway, our training schedule back then on the little nickel and dime system we had down there, it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we kind of lifted off percentages. We took maxes in the bench, the squat. I don't think we were deadlifting. I think we were power cleaning.
Right.
And everything
was that a little bit new at the time? Because, lifting, with sports is like, kind of a late 80s, 90s, right?
Oh, man, yeah. This was, I graduated high school.
So that's almost revolutionary for someone to implement strength training into high school, right?
No, but yeah, this was right in junior college.
Oh, junior college.
So
okay.
Anyway, my point is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, working the whole body. And working off percentages. I like working off percentages. But for me, it takes the guesswork out.
Right.
Now, I know you're not so much really a percentage guy. Once you're figuring out a 1-rep max,
right.
and just say for a round figure, you bench press 500.
Right.
And then a lot of people will design the 12-week program to the bench contest around that percentage. You don't really train like that, do you?
No.
Okay, but answer this question first. 3 days a week, busting your ass, total body workout. There was probably, 8 different exercises in total. Is that too much?
8 different exercises per workout?
Yeah. The whole body.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much. You got to keep in mind.
At 19, 20, probably not.
Yeah. It's a very young age. But also you got to keep in mind, like the coach, the strength coach, or whoever has you doing those drills, he's got a really tough job of having 30 or 40 people in a small room trying to figure out how to get them through a workout. So he's got to give you specific stuff. He's got to keep you busy the whole time. Otherwise, you guys will be starting to mess around with each other, wrestle, fight. Who knows what you'll be doing. So the coach has the job of like trying to figure out, how do I get the most out of these kids in this small confined space that we have.
Almost everything that we did with respect to the bench and the squat, it was all on a pyramid scheme. 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 single, back to a 4.
Right.
And that was the rep scheme every single time we trained.
So years ago, I would say that's absolute garbage. I would say that is the worst way to train, because you're kind of shooting your wad, if you will, before you get to your single rep max. Even doing 135 for a set of 12 is going to gas someone out who only benches around 275. So all those repetitions beforehand, normally, like the way a warm-up should go, in my opinion, is your warm-up is just your warm-up, and it shouldn't fatigue you at all for your main set. It should actually enhance your main set. However, there's been kind of like not even research necessarily, but just empirical evidence from just some top lifters showing that they're improving their conditioning by going into these heavy sets fatigued. Not only that, they're also they're getting stronger because they're able to attack the weights with less weight, get more out of less. So, for example, if someone's trying to do a 500-pound bench for a single, as they get to, let's say, 475, they hit 475 for a single, they get a similar stimulus that they would if they would have went to 505 by doing the 475 fatigued. And what does that do? That helps keep you safe.
Right. So you're not lifting the maximum pounds, just a little bit
right.
easier
So
on the
like
joints.
intentionally forcing yourself to lift less weights. That's what a lot of guys have to do when they start getting to the top of the food chain, though, usually.
Hey, man, in the here's a question, in nutrition, in the super heavyweight category, man, a lot of those guys, and you tell me how this was for you, because I know now, I mean, you're all about looking good, and you look pretty shredded right now. But at the super heavyweight level, I mean, a lot of times those guys are just worried about calories in and don't really have any care at all about
Right.
eating a bunch of cheeseburgers, fries, and malts. It's all about getting the calories in.
Yeah.
So they're strong as a house. Has that changed any? Is it now more about the macros and high protein and carbs to facilitate the training, or is it still a free-for-all for those guys because they're large human beings to begin with?
Again, the evidence would go back to just guys eating whatever they want. Because when you talk to the top lifters in the world, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I dieted down for this weight class, and I did this for that weight class." And you say, "Well, what do you eat now?" And they always say, "Oh, just whatever I want." They all pretty much eat whatever they want. I just don't think, and I know people are going to hammer me on this, especially nutrition coaches and stuff. I just don't think it makes that much of a difference. Performance-wise, if you're talking about someone running a 400-meter and 800-meter race or 400-meter hurdles or even doing a pro wrestling match or anything like that, that's going to cause fatigue, then I would say, yeah, they probably want to pay more attention to their diet. But really, I don't think you can eat bad enough to make yourself weaker.
So somebody sent me a tweet on my Twitter account, and I'm Steve Austin BSR. On Twitter, you're Mark Smelly Bell.
Right.
Chris, on Twitter, you're
Big, Strong, Fast.
Big, Strong, Fast. Somebody sent me a message on Twitter and said, "Hey, Mark Bell just got on a ketogenic diet. When you get on a diet, it's big news," because I heard about it. So anyway, are you still on that? And how are you liking it if you are?
Yeah, I do. A lot of times I go back to doing a keto-style diet.
And explain to everybody what a keto-style diet is.
Keto-style diet, just put simply, is to you just restrict yourself of carbohydrates pretty much completely. You want to try to have no carbs for the day. And some people ask me all the time, how many carbs do you have? I don't really know. I don't try to count them. Those little bastards are in everything that you try to eat. So you're going to pick up 3 here and 5 there. Carbs are kind of everywhere. They're in sauces and everything.
But you're not eating starches. You're not eating potatoes, pasta, rice.
Yeah, you're not intentionally eating any carbs. You can have some vegetables.
But you've really got to jack up your fats to be able to get your total calories in. So what kind of fat grams you taking in?
Yeah, you need your fat to be high because otherwise your body's going to kind of feed off its muscle. So you need to have fat and protein. And something that he and I kind of came up with was we called it the war on carbs. It was a while back. We were like, we were talking, I don't know, we just got talking, and I was like, I don't want to eat another carb for a while. And he's like, oh, neither do I. So we made a pact to not eat carbs for a month.
I actually lost about 45 pounds recently from eating no carbs.
Okay, but did you take, so what are you weighing right now, 215?
215, exactly.
Okay, man, I should work in a circus. Okay, so you're 215. Did you put because here's where I'm real bad at, jumping on a computer and getting on the online calorie calculators and saying, okay, you weigh this, here's what you need to eat.
I didn't touch any of that. I basically just did what Mark told me to do. Was I kept my fat high, so I I'd have MCT oil in my protein shakes, and I'd have a couple protein shakes a day maybe, and mainly lived off of grass-fed beef, and just
and more exercise. Imagine that.
Yeah, basically I actually started doing cardio, and I basically lost a lot of weight doing that.
Now, some people that's the dreaded word because you're gonna burn up your muscle mass.
Right.
Where are you on that? As long as you have enough calories to facilitate the process of fat loss, but not muscle loss, where are you on the cardio spectrum?
Just think of it this way: some walking or something like that. There's just no way it should be ripping your muscle apart. The only thing I would say is that you don't want to try to jump into an exercise, or you don't want to try to jump into a diet by starting with a bunch of exercise and reducing the calories significantly. The first thing that you want to do is you want to try to find a baseline of calories, and you want to start to add in a little bit of activity over a period of time. And then if you want to try to get shredded or you need to lose weight for a particular reason, that's when you're going to start to pull out food. But you always want to try to have as much food as you can so that you can.
You want to eat as
yourself.
much as you can while you're losing. You don't just want to jump to a bottom line figure, because then you first of all you're going to plateau once you get to that certain mark. And where do you go from there when you're not really getting enough nutrition to supply your body with what it needs? So your body says, "Hey, piss on you! I'm stopping here."
And you do want to try to send your body, Stan Efforting, good friend of mine. He's been on the podcast before. He always kind of talks about signals. You want to send certain signals to your body. So he'll say steady state cardio isn't necessarily bad. It's just that it sends a better signal to your body when you do sprint style cardio. Just because it's fast, you only have to do it for 10-15 minutes, and it just has a little bit better response on holding muscle rather than burning muscle.
All right, dude, what are you weighing right now?
I'm about 255.
Okay, what are you taking in the form of calories?
I don't really count calories, so I do on occasion, but it's rare for me to count calories. Right now, I'm not on a keto style diet. I'm having carbs usually just around my workout, or one or two carb meals a day, just kind of depending on the day.
So you don't have any idea how many grams of protein you're taking in?
I don't know. It's probably about I probably have about 40 or 50 per meal, and then I have
how many meals?
I have about 6 meals every day.
Right.
So whatever the math is on that.
So, I mean, if you get 300 grams of protein, that's it? For a guy like you?
Yeah, about 300 grams of protein.
And if you're only eating a carb before or after your workout, man, at the max, it's going to be about 100.
Yeah, 100, maybe.
You're going to be eating a lot of fat.
Maybe 200. And probably a similar amount of I probably don't eat quite as much fat right now, but when I'm on a keto-style diet, then it jumps up. What I always tell everybody, it's pretty simple, is if you want to eat carbohydrates for your energy source, you have to lower your fat intake significantly. If you want to go on a keto-style diet, then you have to raise your fat significantly, and it can't be carbs in there. You got to be careful you don't mesh the two things together. And it also depends on your goals. If you just want to tighten up a little bit, tightening up your body or just dropping a couple pounds is fairly easy. Again, the first thing that you can do is you don't have to change anything in your diet. You can add a little bit of exercise if you're not already exercising a ton.
Right. So, Chris, are you still keto?
I basically stay on a ketogenic diet for the most part. I cheat like once or twice a week. I'll have 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. But basically, like, just stay on a ketogenic diet to keep my carbs low, keep my fat.
Some of the diets that are popular right now, like flexible dieting, if it fits your macros, all those styles of things, they're great. But you're probably in the same boat as me, and he's in the same boat too. I can't follow it because if I can eat a brownie, then I'm going to eat 2 brownies, and I'm going to eat ice cream, and I'm going to start to slaughter everything else. And so for us, that's where the war on carbs came to be. Because we're kind of addicted to sugar.
When I stay on a ketogenic diet, I actually use the keto sticks. So you pee on the keto sticks, and if they turn purple,
you're
purple.
In ketosis.
You're in ketosis, and that's a pretty decent way for me to just I have a hard time dieting. Like, I hate dieting. I have a hard time staying on a diet. So for me, that just keeps me in ketosis, keeps me on the diet.
Yeah, well, because there goes back to your accountability or some consequence. You're still in ketosis. But see, here's the thing, man. When I was on a keto diet back in the day, of course, I'm always going to return to normal or what's easy, and that's obviously a couple of carbs here and there.
Right.
And as the boys, like my buddy in Texas always tells me, he goes, Steve, carbs aren't the enemy.
Yeah.
And they're not, but they are if you just jump right back on them when you come off really any diet.
But what stops you from having dessert, when you were allowed a potato and so on? It gets to be hard, You're like,
but just reintroducing the carbs after you've been no carb for so long, your body doesn't know, hey, man, what am I doing here? I'm going to hoard this in. And so, that's kind of classic. Bodybuilder gets all ripped up for a show and then just starts binge eating everything, jumps up 30 pounds in 2 weeks.
You got to do your research and know what you're doing. So if you know what you're doing, you're not.
And these days, the term is reverse dieting,
right?
Slowly adding in,
right,
and going back to a maintenance level,
right? You want to try to build yourself up over a period of time, allow yourself to use as much.
That's been my biggest issue is just a yo-yo thing. I'll get tremendous shape and say, "Oh man, that's deer season." Oh,
right.
What did you do when you wrestled though? Because you looked amazing all the time. You had abs and everything.
Oh man, that was just when you're on the road every single day.
You had those golden locks and everything. Remember that?
Well, I was back in the Stunning Steve days.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, man, when you're in that ring, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes every single night, and all the guys are training, they're because it's the same thing over and over again. You fly into a town, a bunch of guys get in a rental car, go straight to the gym.
Well, you got to be on TV too.
Yeah,
you don't want to look like shit on TV.
Well, just trying to present an athletic build. I was never trying to be the ultimate warrior. I knew the genetic structure I was dealing with. And but you're always in the gym every single day. You're doing some form of cardio at the gym, and then in the ring, you can't get no better cardio than that. It's like an MMA fighter sparring. It's very specific to being in that squared circle. So and also, like here at 316 Gimmick Street, I don't really have a normal job. Sometimes, I'm pretty sedentary other than my gym sessions.
Right.
So you're always on the go. So
I always call working out artificial exercise because we just have to make up exercise for ourselves because we don't hunt and we don't like build our own stuff anymore. We have everybody do it for us. So you got to like make up shit to do, Hey,
one of the things I love about you, shifting gears just a little bit, I was in good shape back in the squared circle days, but so many of the guys before we started Rolling Sound here, we were talking about the Broken Skull Challenge, and I've met a whole lot of CrossFitters come through there,
Right.
and all of the women and the men come from different backgrounds, some from the MMA world, bodybuilding, pro wrestling. Had a ton of CrossFitters out there, and all of them, the guys and gals, are in extreme condition. They're at the Super Training Gym. A lot of CrossFit going on because y'all are known for being the strongest gym in the West, powerlifting.
Right. There's not a lot of CrossFitters in there, but I work with a lot of CrossFitters, and there was one CrossFitter in particular that ended up on your show. Her name's Jessica Fitzgibbon. She trains at CSA, and she's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, there's really not much she can't do. She's not. I wouldn't even really call her a CrossFitter because she's been training for probably maybe 2 decades before CrossFit ever kind of came around. But you'll see holes in any training system, just like you will powerlifting. There's tons of holes in powerlifting. Anytime a bodybuilder comes into powerlifting, what ends up happening is they end up destroying the powerlifters because they're in better condition, they're in better shape, they can handle more training, they can handle a higher frequency, they can handle more volume, and then also with their background, they're hitting things from many different angles between doing lunges and step-ups and leg press. They're not just squatting all the time.
Well, which are the bodybuilders that you speak of that are coming into powerlifting and dominating? I mean, obviously, when you think
Right.
and you watch some of the YouTube stuff of Ronnie Coleman,
Right.
he would have been an outstanding powerlifter.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But what were the other bodybuilders that really made the transition?
You got a new guy now. His name is Amit Sapir. He's a he still is a pro bodybuilder.
Right.
He's squatting over. What does he squat? Like I think he's going for like a 765 squat.
Body weight of?
198, I think,
it's
and just a pair of knee sleeves too. I mean, this guy's insane how strong he is.
Yeah.
He's a short, stocky guy, but extremely strong. He got Stan Efferding, obviously, who came through
Dude's a genetic freak.
like wildfire,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a guy who was very thin, and so he kind of, as a bodybuilder, he kind of knew what to do, but to gain the size and the mass of a powerlifter, he didn't know what to do at first. So he had to power lift. He had to powerlifters are just kind of slow in general. Like maybe our brains are slow too, but we kind of move around slow. Our workouts are slow. We take long rests in between sets, and we take long rests sometimes in between our training splits. They might have more rest than a bodybuilder. And so Stan utilized that technique to help get himself the size he needed, and went back and forth between bodybuilding and powerlifting, got the best of both worlds.
Hey, man, and just talking about workout frequency, man, I got the Jim Wendler book. Was it 531?
Yeah.
I read it back in the day, about a year ago. And, man, if I read a book, that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the book.
Good.
And obviously Jim knows what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's a very strong human being. There was a couple of gaps in there because I'm not a diehard powerlifter that kind of threw me for a loop.
Right.
But, man, I know that Jim wanted to go into the gym and be as very economic as possible,
Right.
like 4 days a week, and just his goal was to get strong.
Yeah.
And so he was very goal-oriented. Me, what I always think is, man, 4 days isn't enough. I got to
Right.
train 7.
Yeah.
I'll never give my body a break.
Yeah.
And so then I'm thinking overtraining. And then you get the people to say, oh, you can't overtrain. You can undereat and undersleep.
Right.
BS. You can't overtrain.
Oh, yeah.
So with respect to frequency, you look like $1 million. What were you doing during your heavy-duty powerlifting days as far as frequency, and what are you doing now?
I think it has to constantly change, but I've done everything from training like 7, 8, 9 times a week all the way down to training about 3 times a week. So you have to change it kind of with your goals. If your goal, you want to try to lose a little bit of weight, then maybe you want to up the frequency so you're burning more calories. Maybe you're getting too big for your weight class and you need to start to try to cut back down rather than trying to dump a bunch of calories or do anything crazy. Just try to add in more exercise.
But, man, with respect to bodybuilding, a lot of times they'll say, man, I used to love just hitting everything once a week.
Yeah.
One time, when you see someone at the gym and they're just gigantic, you always ask them, hey, dude, how you training? I can't remember. We was on the road somewhere in Odessa, Texas.
They always tell you the same thing. It's always some boring routine, right? So,
but in the middle of nowhere, I said, dude, how often you train? And it's like one of the biggest guys I'd ever seen, other than Jeep Swenson walking across the parking lot in Dallas, Texas, a long time ago. But I said, man, how often you hit the body part? Standard questions. You ask the dude that looks like $1 million. He goes, man, I like to kill everything once a week and don't touch it. So I was hitting body part once a week. So my whole thing was, chest Monday, back Tuesday,
right.
Shoulders Wednesday, take a day off. legs on a Thursday, Friday would be arms, or Saturday, whatever,
Right.
and put another day off in there. But basically, that was my schedule.
Right.
You think you get enough work out of hitting the body part once a week?
Yeah, I do. I do think that the smaller muscle groups, your biceps, your triceps, maybe like your calves, stuff like that, could probably be worked more frequently. Quads, hamstrings, back, and your pecs and stuff like that might need a little bit more rest. But you can make yourself adapt to certain things, which sometimes can be good and sometimes it can suck, because if you adapt to something, then you might have to keep on doing more and more and more just to get a result out of it. So that's why it's important to kind of switch things up a little bit and make sure that you're at least changing weights and rep schemes and stuff like that.
So what are you doing right now? What's your training split? Here's the old gym question.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, right now I go Tuesday is kind of a deadlift-based day. So when I say deadlift-based, I could just be training something for the deadlift. It doesn't mean that I'm actually deadlifting every single week, just because deadlifting every single week can kind of break you down too much. So I might do a lot of back work. I might do bent over rows and a lot of movements like that, just to help build the deadlift, hamstring movements, things of that nature. Thursday is a max effort bench day. I just try to go as heavy as I can on a bench, as heavy as I can. When I say as heavy as I can, it's not all out. I usually go to, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I go somewhere between an 8 and a 9.
Right.
Because it's my belief that you can get stronger that way. You don't have to go to a 9.5 or a 10. You don't have to blow your face out every single time you train. And then Saturday is another lower body day, usually a squat. And then Sunday is like an accessory day. I sometimes will bench on that day, but benching twice a week can just wreak havoc on your shoulders. So I might do biceps and triceps and some light shoulder work, stuff like that.
Just 4 days a week?
Just 4 days a week, yep. Bench, squat, deadlift, and then the third day is just an accessory day.
Man, but you got a pretty good physique. You're not doing just lots of pull downs and stuff like that.
I do, yeah. So, again, that would be on the that'd be on the deadlift day.
Okay.
Or sometimes, in my gym, I coach a lot of people, and I might get sidetracked with one thing or the other, going off and helping somebody, and I come back and I look, and the lat pull down machine's free, so I'll jump on it and I'll hit as many sets as I can. So there's not always a lot of rhyme or reason to the different methods that I use.
Hey, man, a lot of the CrossFit people, and I think one of these things is, when I watch the CrossFit games, and I think you're looking at elite athletes because they made the CrossFit games, because you're looking at some of the best physiques walking around, probably because of the grade competition that it is. But with respect to someone trying to get in shape right now, what would you tell them? Hey, man, go in there and just do your regular bodybuilding routine?
Yeah.
Would you say, hey, man, light up some CrossFit? And let's just say we're talking about your regular, everyday Joe. He's not necessarily an ectomorph or mesomorph, just a regular cat.
Just, I'd say a little bit of powerlifting. Learn the bench, squat, deadlift. Try to find someone local in your area. There's somebody everywhere across the entire country, whether it's a CrossFit coach or whoever. Somebody's going to be able to teach you a bench, squat, or deadlift. And if they don't teach you that well, then it might lead to the next guy and so on. But yeah, standard bodybuilding routine is going to be really effective. I always kind of feel like when I get guys that come into my gym that are new and they're scrawny and stuff like that, I'm always like, I feel like just telling them, hey, go do 3 sets of 10 of every machine that you can get your hands on, and come back in 6 months or something like that. But
start building a well-rounded base.
Yeah, build a little. If you have even just a base, you're going to come in that much better than the next guy. So, yeah, just a little bit of powerlifting, bench, squat, deadlift, and then mix in a little bit of bodybuilding work. Your workout should only take about 45 minutes to an hour. Especially if you're newer, because the weights you're lifting just aren't that heavy, so the workout should be fairly quick.
Okay, this is a cat that we're trying to get in shape. You currently right now, you doing any cardio with your routine?
Not right now, but I'll mix in cardio, from time to time if I want to lose weight.
Yeah, what form? Steady state?
I do both. They both work, so why not use both? And that's the same thing with diet. Or think about Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee kind of embraced all forms of martial arts to kick people's ass, right?
Right.
I do the same thing with training. I embrace many different. Why just powerlift? Why not powerlift and bodybuild? If tempo training works, bringing the weights down for 4 seconds, why not utilize that on occasion? If this works and that works, why not try to implement it? So I'll go, periods of no carbs, periods of some carbs, and so on.
So what do you do with implementation of cardio? Because I'm one of those guys, man. all of a sudden you need to start getting jacked up or ready for a show. And I'm like, man, double cardio, 45 in the a.m., 45 in the p.m. Dude, that's an hour and a half. You know, I got to be eating too much. I mean, so what is your recommendation on cardio?
You know, I do think that first of all, that people should have some form of cardio in their training at all times, just because I think it's healthy. But other than that, I like to do the steady state cardio about twice a week. And,
how long?
Those are usually about 30 minutes.
What intensity? On a 1 to 10, a 4?
6, yeah, like a 6, yeah, maybe a 5 or 6.
$20, $30 on the heartbeat?
Yeah, depending on the day, you know. Some days I'll push it a little harder, but yeah, right in that range is usually good. And then with the sprint type of cardio, HIIT training, I'll usually do twice a week. I do about 10 sprints, and however long it takes me to get to those sprints, I just ride it out kind of, because you know, it doesn't really matter when you do them. I mean, it can in terms of your actual conditioning, but in terms of burning fat, you can rest 5 minutes or you can rest 1 minute. Some of the research is showing that anyway.
Y'all pushing prowlers and doing stuff like that over at Super Training?
Yeah. So if I go out and sprint at 255 pounds, I'm going to blow something off probably.
Right.
In the process of stopping or starting or something, I'm going to blow out a hamstring or my butt or something. So, we use the prowler. The prowler is just a device you load some weight on, and you run with it. You push it like you'd push a car.
Right.
And because you're moving slower, it's safer for you. It's also going to get your heart rate up more. You could flip a tire. There's all kinds of different. I use a recumbent bike here and there. There's all different kinds of things. Whatever you can do to get your heart rate up, whatever you do to get yourself gassed, you kind of get that burn in the back of your throat. That's what you're looking for.
We were talking about CrossFit earlier. We were talking about Seth Rollins earlier. Seth Rollins is a CrossFitter. I guess people ask me all the time who in the WWE could take on a skullbuster and maybe accomplish it. What do you think about Seth Rollins? Would he stand a chance on my skullbuster on a Broken Skull Challenge?
I don't think Seth Rollins would stand up to a Stone Cold Stunner, but I think he would probably get through the obstacle course pretty good.
He could probably kick out of the springboard stunner from Cena.
Yeah, Cena doesn't look like he's perfected that technique. It doesn't look like he has it down. He's not giving the fingers afterwards and everything. I mean, wouldn't you need springboard fingers afterwards too, right? Springboard middle fingers?
Man, I'm telling you, man. Chris, springboard stunner. I mean, I was pretty effective at kicking a dude in the gut and just jumping up, putting his head on my hand.
It's the best finisher ever.
Yeah, it is. I mean, without a
finisher.
DDT, you always got to stand up for the DDT because I loved when Jake Snake Roberts had it.
Do you know that I produced the movie, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, that you're actually in?
Oh, did
I was
you?
the executive producer with Dallas.
Man, I missed the screening. I had some stuff going on. How did it end up turning out?
The movie's
I saw
amazing,
an early cut.
and we're actually pushing it right now to.
I want to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie, and I think it's going to help a lot of people, actually with addiction problems, and also. Dallas and I and the producer and the director Steve Yu, we're pushing it right now to get some distribution for it. Hopefully, do some theatrical screening. So we'll invite you to it, of course.
See, man, here's the thing. I was the biggest Jake Snake Roberts fan in the world. And the guy was very economical in the ring, and he didn't do anything that didn't need to be done. And he was just a great guy at selling things. And I was talking to him one time on my ranch. I just got finished talking to DDP, and I said, man, put Jake on the phone. And we talked while I was driving down my west fence line. And he said, Steve, he goes, it'd have been scary to see how good I could have been had I not been so messed up during the majority of my career. Yeah. And I was like, it kind of blew my mind because I was like, yeah, because he was
one of the best ever.
He was, hands down. And it's funny because when you ask guys in the business, whether it's a top guy, middle guy, whatever, everybody has, their favorites. And that's the thing about, pro wrestling. It's subjective. My buddy Zach Wilde is an Ultimate Warrior diehard fan. That was his favorite guy.
Right.
And so that's his favorite guy.
Yeah,
now, if you look on a technical level, first of all, I love what the Ultimate Warrior did and what he accomplished. I used to go see him as a Dingo Warrior in Dallas, Texas. I'm more from that Flair camp. I think Ric Flair is the greatest pro wrestler that ever lived. But Jake is in that conversation too. But there'll be a lot of guys, when you get it, they're very protective. And they won't mention certain guys. Because it was like back in the day when everybody thought Shawn Michaels was like one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody would be like, because they were a little bit jealous, said, no, man, he's just a high spot artist. And I said that.
Right.
Until I worked with him and started watching him, because I came into WWF and was working with him, but I was also watching his matches. And it's like, nah. He ain't a high spot artist. He does a lot of high spots, but he really is probably the best thing in the ring ever. He's really the single best in-ring performer I've ever seen. I've never seen a guy blow a high spot. He's not my favorite pro wrestler,
right,
but I think he's the best performer in the history of the business.
Well, you know, when you wrestled him, I mean, a lot of those matches were awesome. But you know, like someone like Jake the Snake, he pulls greatness out of other people. I mean, the line Austin 316 was in regards to Jake the Snake.
That was the best.
Oh, dude, I always tell everybody it was a fluke, you know, all that stuff that happened. Because, you know, if the Clique hadn't hugged in the garden,
right,
you know, Triple H would have won that King of the Ring. Bam, I'm out of the picture. Had Mark Merrow not, you know, kicked me in the mouth and I go to the hospital, you know, get stitched up, and then Jake cuts that religious promo, Doc Hendricks tells me about it, bang, that doesn't happen. I mean, everything happened for a reason, and a big part of it was Jake the Snake Roberts.
I mean, you're a great worker in the ring, you know, with, you know, your endurance and everything, you know, but, like, were any of the guys, were you ever like, I'm not really keeping up with this shit?
No, man, because that was kind of my
always made sure
MO.
you had that.
I mean, there's times that I did blow up, but I would keep going through.
Yeah, you slow down.
Like when I first came out of ECW and my tricep was healing up, and I had a lot of ring rust on me, so I was working with Savio Vega. Well, Savio Vega's a hell of a damn worker, and I really loved working with him. And he was old school. I mean, he was always going to shine. He's always going to get his comeback in.
Wait, what did Savio Vega give you, a pile driver or a backdrop? You said on concrete or something. What was it?
No, that's a different story.
Oh.
But Savio Vega, I mean, man, you worked 2 months around the horn with that guy, you know, and you couldn't follow us after I worked with him for 2 months because he got me back in shape. And, you know, once you get in ring shape, and I was just one of those guys, I'm going to grind through everything.
Yeah.
So I had that reputation of, hey, man, you're working with us, you got to be able to keep up.
Right.
One guy I'll mention with regards to gas tank is Undertaker. He's a guy that always sells on the run because he's a big guy, and so you got to really do a lot to keep him down or in one spot. So a lot of times you'll see him get up, he'll move down that ring, which is smart on his part because he's protecting his character. And since he's basically bigger than anybody on the card or one of the biggest guys on the card, it makes sense for him to sell like a big man does. And I'll tell you what, you know, until you got used to working with him, he could tire your ass out, but he was smart about what he did.
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
I don't think people understand how demanding it is in there. Like it's like running a sprint.
Well, I mean, how'd you feel? I mean,
it killed me. Like, your lungs would burn.
I could go in there right now, and you know, like I could blow up, man, in 2 to 3 minutes.
Right.
Just even if I just opened up on a guy, full force stomps and kicks in a corner in a turnbuckle or something like that. Much less run a simple high spot.
Yeah.
And then grab that hold if I'm working a headlock with tension, but light. But just with tension, and that's flexing. Everything you do out there takes energy.
Yeah.
And so it's a real work in progress. And that was one of the things I loved. And we're all over the place with this conversation. But before we wrap it up, you know, it's one of the things I really loved about just the art of the business or the art of performing in the ring, was watching how relaxed a Ric Flair was. How relaxed a guy like Ricky Morton was.
Yeah.
You know, they were always Steamboat, you know, the great ones, you know, and, you know, Bret Hart. But how relaxed they were, and all the stuff that they did looked good. Because it's one thing going and be relaxed, and you have too many gaps, and you think everything looks like crap.
Right.
But those guys made everything look good, but just in their body language and their presentation, it was fun to watch, because I think in wrestling there's that pro style match.
Right.
And if you look back at the Rock and Roll Express, those two guys are big as a minute, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. But they never worked like a small tag team. They worked like a main event tag team that was, you know, 250 pounds.
Yeah. It's amazing, you know, the energy it takes to be able to survive, you know, in a wrestling match.
So what's next for you guys? You came down to Los Angeles, successful business endeavor for you with respect to getting some gear for supertraining.tv. And one thing I love about your website, real quick, get that plug in there because of the instruction. One of my favorite things is watch is like bench day or squat day or whatever, and you're narrating everything.
Right.
Just because you really hear the voice of someone who has been there, done that, and knows from top to bottom the do's and don'ts of powerlifting. So if any of you guys are in a jam or gals and looking to a little bit of online coaching, check out supertraining.tv, which is Mark's website, because I really dig all the stuff that you do.
It gives me an opportunity to talk over top of different lifters lifting, you know. So some guy might watch it and might be like, well, I'm not 6'3", 300 pounds like that guy. But then the next guy comes up and he's 180 pounds, and the guy can relate to that. And there's a lot to learn. I always tell people, you know, just hop on YouTube, check it out, and try to look at people that are similar to yourself and have similar goals.
Hey, man, also before we leave, the PowerCast. How's the Powercast? Are you doing one show a week now? What's your schedule?
The Powercast is doing great. We have one show a week right now, but we're up to about 120,000 downloads per episode, and I'm really proud of that. You know, we've seen the effect with the sales of the Slingshot and the sales of the other products that we have surrounding the Slingshot, and even more so at these trade shows. I went to the Arnold Classic, and this was the first year that I had a line. I had a line of people, you know, who wanted autographs and pictures, right. And you know, they're like, "Hey, I remember you said this on the," and I don't, and you probably get that all the time, but I don't, you know, for me, a lot of it is still new. You know, people want to take pictures even when I'm trying to go to the bathroom. You know, so it got to be a little crazy, but it was a lot of fun, and yeah, the podcast is great. We don't, you know, we
with
don't
the podcast,
even.
You just really like talking. Well, I know you've talked with guys from my world. Cesaro was just down at Super Training Gym training a few months ago,
not too long ago,
and strong dude, right?
Oh yeah, he's in great shape.
He deadlifted like 550 when he was there, right?
Yeah, without deadlifting all that.
Just
often,
walked in the door, and he's like a kind of a thin guy.
Yeah,
he's a good 6'3", I'd say.
It was amazing to just watch him do that and watch him pull that much.
And everybody on the crew knows how strong he is. He's just a specimen to begin with. But on top of that, trains so hard. He like Cena. I mean, you know, Cena's super strong. A lot of people just think he's got a muscular physique. He's a good-looking guy. But no, that dude's one of the strongest guys in the history of the business.
Yeah, Cena's unbelievable with his strength. I mean, squat, bench, deadlift, and cleans and snatches and all that stuff. I don't know how
most of the people you talk to in the powerlifting game or a weightlifting game, who's the last
on the
person you had on?
podcast? Anybody's in the line of fire. You know, anybody who's got a following or anything. You know, we recently talked to Keith Jardine. We had Tate Fletcher on the show. Those two guys together.
How was Keith Jardine? We did a movie together.
He's amazing.
Dude, you know, he's one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, and reads a lot of books.
Yeah,
a highly interesting human being.
Yeah, he was so like relaxed and stuff. And so I talked to him about what you just mentioned about those wrestlers being relaxed in the ring. And I was like, how does that happen? How do you get like? You sometimes see a guy on his back and the guy's throwing punches at him, and you can see them like thinking.
Yeah.
And they'll close their eyes even sometimes, you know. And I'm like, what is that like? So he told a story about how he just got absolutely clocked by somebody, and a song from like Green Day came into his head because they were playing at the Hard Rock that he was staying at, the hotel he was staying at. He's like, no one would ever understand any of this, but he's like, this music was playing. He got a calm over him, and he ended up winning the fight. He ended up coming back and winning the fight after getting his ass kicked so much. So it was great having him on the show. We have a lot of great guests on the show. We've had my brother here on the show, and we've had you on the show before. We got to get you up to super training.
Man, dude, I've been trying to get to Sacramento forever, and it's like, man, every time I think about going out, look, see how far it is.
Yeah, it's far.
We just got finished driving back from Texas, but I got a couple weeks. But here's the thing, man. I took about 10 days off my training, and I feel like crap, you know, like a pretzel. Again, this morning I woke up and feel like $1,000,000. I got to get my nutrition dialed in. And so when I come to super training, we can't roll any cameras. It's going to be audio only because I'm going to go up there to the gym and embarrass myself.
Well,
but I've been meaning to get there.
You can just yell at us or something. We'll figure something out.
No, I can do that.
People just like watching you.
So, dude, are you in Sacramento now, too?
No, I'm actually right down the street from you in Marina Del Rey.
Yes, but were you in Sacramento for a little bit for the rehab or what?
Yeah, actually, after I went to rehab, I went and stayed with Mark for quite a while. I just got myself back together, and now I'm actually looking to do another documentary. I'm trying to do something again. It's sort of similar to Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I want to do a documentary about sort of the idea of what is healthy. You know, we look at all these different things and different gimmicks, and we have, you know, all the different there's so many different health food
people
items
might
out
think
there.
yogurt's real healthy, but then they're not realizing it's flavored
full
and
of sugar,
and it might have 20 ingredients that are unnecessary.
The idea of what is healthy, you know, and what, you know, basically like every food that we have nowadays is processed and everything,
right?
You know, so I want to do something along those lines.
Hey man, just before we wrap it up, you said that the paleo diet. They always talk about eating certain things that were around from back in the day.
Right.
Because like potatoes weren't around back in the day, this, that, whatever.
Right.
And I'm not a paleo expert, but man, just because it wasn't around back in the day doesn't necessarily mean inherently it's bad for you.
Some of those things are really interesting. I think like the paleo diet is actually really an interesting diet, but I don't think it's 100%. You know, right? But it is
great that it helps pull junk out of your diet.
Yeah, it exactly. Pulls crap out of your diet, basically. So helps you pull a lot of things that you normally shouldn't have out of your diet. Things that were,
getting rid of bread.
Gummy bears went around, 100 years ago. So those kind of things.
You see a couple of cavemen fighting over a bag of gummy bears.
I've seen that.
Hey, I'm sitting here with Mark Bell and Chris Bell. They're fixing to ride off into the sunset, and I'm going to give them the option of taking the window or taking the stairs, and that's how we roll here at 316 Gimmick Street.
I'll take the window.
On Twitter, I'm not even going to open it for you. On Twitter, he's Mark Smelly Bell.
Mark Smelly Bell on Twitter and Instagram.
Supertraining.tv, got a Twitter account?
At Mark Smelly Bell, yep.
Okay, and Chris?
I'm at Big Strong Fast, even though I'm not any of those.
Don't be so hard on yourself, kid. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys coming by the house. I'll catch you down the road.
Thank you.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Watch Yellowstone for free on Pluto TV. All this weekend, Pluto TV is streaming a marathon of seasons 1 to 3 of Yellowstone, the show The Wrap calls a smash hit series. Pluto TV also has hundreds of channels and thousands of movies and TV shows like Mission Impossible 3, Gladiator, CSI, and more. Absolutely free. So download the free Pluto TV streaming app and watch Yellowstone seasons 1 to 3 free.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy, Big Brother Jake, a.k.a. Jake Warner. My government name. Check it out. I host a show called the Big Brother Jake Podcast, and I've taken my talents to the biggest and baddest platform on the planet. That's right, baby. Podcast One. My show is unique as I talk about everything. Life, sports, entertainment, being a single dad juggling several jobs. I'm a hot mess, but it's damn entertaining. Subscribe and review now on Apple Podcasts and listen on Podcast One or wherever you get your podcasts.